Captain Kim Jae pressed his sweaty palms against the cool metal of the observation deck as his ship glided through the purple clouds surrounding the alien world. 3 months of space travel had led to this moment. Earth's future depended on what happened in the next few hours. "Sir, we're receiving their docking codes now," announced Lieutenant Park Min from the communications station. Her voice carried the same nervous energy that filled the entire bridge. Everyone knew the stakes. Kim Jae nodded and walked to his quarters one last time. On his desk sat a clear preservation case containing 12 perfect roses from his grandmother's garden back in Seoul. Red, white, and pink petals caught the artificial light. He had spent weeks researching human customs about gift-giving. Flowers meant friendship, respect, and beauty in every human culture he could find. The alien princess was said to be the most beautiful creature in the galaxy. The few blurry photographs Earth had received showed a tall, elegant figure with shimmering blue skin and eyes like stars. Princess Nara ruled the Velian Empire, a collection of worlds that controlled the richest mining systems in this part of space. Earth needed their resources desperately. "Captain, they're requesting you board their transport," called out Ensign Lee So from the pilot station. Through the main view screen, Kim Jae could see a vessel unlike anything in human space. It looked like it was grown rather than built, with smooth curves and surfaces that seemed to pulse with their own light. Kim Jae picked up the flower case and headed for the airlock. The weight of representing all humanity pressed down on his shoulders. Back on Earth, billions of people were watching the news feeds, hoping for a miracle. Food shortages, energy crises, and overcrowding had pushed civilization to the breaking point. The Velian Empire held the key to solving these problems. The alien transport felt warm and alive around him. Strange music filled the air, and the walls seemed to breathe. Kim Jae had trained for months to handle alien environments, but nothing could have prepared him for this. The very air tasted different, sweet and rich, like spring rain. When the Y transport docked with the Velian Palace, Kim Jae stepped out into a world that defied description. Towers of living crystal stretched up toward a sky filled with 3 moons. Gardens floated in mid-air, their roots dangling freely as they absorbed nutrients from the atmosphere. Everything glowed with soft, natural light. Velian guards escorted him through corridors that shifted and changed as they walked. The aliens were tall and graceful, their blue skin marked with patterns that seemed to tell stories. They moved without making a sound, their large eyes watching Kim Jae with curiosity. The throne room took his breath away. It was a vast space filled with impossible geometry, where up and down seemed to be suggestions rather than rules. Floating platforms held alien nobles whose skin colors shifted like aurora displays. And there, in the center of it all, sat Princess Nara. She was even more beautiful than the photographs suggested. Her skin was the color of a summer sky, and her hair moved like liquid starlight. When she looked at Kim Jae, he felt like she could see straight through to his soul. This was it. The moment that would determine whether humanity would thrive or struggle alone in the cosmos. Kim Jae stepped forward, clutched the flower case tighter, and prepared to make the most important introduction in human history. Kim Jae's hands trembled slightly as he opened the preservation case. The sweet scent of earth roses filled the alien throne room, a familiar smell in this strange world. He had practiced this moment 1,000 times during the long journey through space. Everything had to be perfect. The floating platforms around the throne room held dozens of Velian nobles, their skin colors shifting like slow rainbows as they watched the human ambassador. Kim Jae could feel their curious eyes studying his every movement. Some leaned forward with interest, while others whispered in their musical language that sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Princess Nara sat perfectly still on her throne, which seemed to be carved from a single massive crystal. Her starlight hair flowed around her shoulders, and her sky-blue skin glowed with an inner light that made her look like a living constellation. When she smiled, Kim Jae felt his heart skip a beat. Maybe this would go better than anyone had hoped. "Your Highness," Kim Jae began, his voice echoing strangely in the vast chamber. He had memorized the formal greeting that Earth's linguists had prepared. "I come before you as a representative of humanity, bringing gifts from our world as a symbol of our desire for friendship and cooperation." He lifted the bouquet of roses from their case. The flowers were perfect specimens, each petal flawless, after months in biostasis. The red roses represented love and respect, the white ones stood for peace and new beginnings, and the pink ones symbolized admiration and gratitude. Every human culture he knew used flowers to express positive emotions. Kim Jae stepped forward and extended the bouquet toward Princess Nara with a deep bow, just as he had been taught. From the gardens of Earth to the palace of Velia, may these flowers represent the blooming friendship between our peoples. The reaction was immediate and terrifying. Princess Nara's beautiful blue skin began to change color, darkening to a deep purple that spread across her face and down her neck like spilled ink. Her star-bright eyes widened in what Kim Jae first thought was surprise but quickly realized was something much worse. Her elegant features twisted into an expression of pure horror. The entire court erupted in shocked gasps and musical cries that filled the crystal chamber with discord. The floating platforms began to sway as the nobles on them recoiled in apparent disgust. Some covered their eyes with their long, graceful fingers. Others made gestures that Kim Jae didn't understand, but felt certain were not good. The princess's advisor, a tall Velian whose skin had turned an angry red color, stepped forward and spoke rapidly in their native language. His words sounded like breaking glass mixed with storm winds. Whatever he was saying made the other nobles murmur in agreement, their own skin colors shifting to darker, more aggressive hues. Kim Jae stood frozen, still holding the bouquet of roses that had somehow become the most dangerous objects in the room. His mind raced as he tried to understand what had gone wrong. The flowers were beautiful, fresh, and carefully chosen. They represented the best of Earth's natural beauty. How could they possibly be offensive? Princess Nara finally spoke, her voice shaking with an emotion Kim Jae couldn't identify. The translation device in his ear crackled to life, converting her musical words into stark English that hit him like physical blows. The friendship mission had just become a disaster, and Kim Jae didn't even know why. The translation device in Kim Jae's ear buzzed with static before Princess Nara's words came through in broken English. "You bring me severed plant corpses?" Her voice carried a mix of disgust and disbelief that made Kim Jae's stomach drop. He looked down at the roses in his hands, confusion washing over him. These were supposed to be gifts of beauty and friendship. Back on Earth, giving flowers was one of the most positive gestures humans could make. His grandmother had grown these very roses in her small garden behind their apartment building in Seoul. She had tended them with love for decades. "I don't understand," Kim Jae said, his voice barely above a whisper. "These are flowers. They represent beauty and peace in human culture." Princess Nara's skin turned an even darker shade of purple, almost black now. She stood from her crystal throne, her movements sharp and angry. "Beauty? You call the dismembered bodies of living beings beautiful?" The alien nobles around the room began making sounds that the translator couldn't convert into words. Kim Jae realized they were expressions of horror and revulsion. Some of the Velians had turned away completely, unable to look at the bouquet. In his hands, a tall advisor with silver markings on his blue skin stepped forward. His name was Lord Tae-min, according to Kim Jae's briefing materials. "Human," he said, his translated words dripping with contempt. "Do you not understand what you have done? Every plant on your world has a soul, a consciousness, a right to live. You have murdered these beings and present their corpses as gifts." Kim Jae's mind reeled as the full scope of his mistake became clear. The cultural briefings had mentioned that Velians had a close relationship with plant life, but nobody had explained just how sacred that relationship was. On Earth, humans had been cutting flowers for thousands of years without thinking about gardens, flower shops, wedding bouquets. It was all completely normal. "But they're just flowers," Kim Jae protested weakly, even as he realized how horrible that must sound to alien ears. "On Earth, we give flowers to show love and respect. We grow them specifically for this purpose." Princess Nara's expression grew even more horrified. "You breed them to kill them? You create life only to destroy it for your pleasure?" Her voice rose, and the crystal walls of the throne room seemed to vibrate with her anger. Lord Tae-min raised his hand, And Kim Jae noticed for the first time that thin green vines grew from the alien's fingers, connecting him to flowering plants that seemed to be part of his body. "Your species commits genocide for decoration," he declared. "How can we trust beings who murder the innocent for beauty?" The other nobles began to move restlessly on their floating platforms. Their skin colors shifted to reds and deep purples, colors that Kim Jae was beginning to understand meant anger and disgust. Some were making gestures toward the guards who stood at the edges of the great chamber. Kim Jae felt the weight of his failure crushing down on him. Billions of humans back on Earth were counting on this mission. Their planet was dying. Resources were running out, and wars were breaking out over clean water and fertile land. The Velian Empire controlled mining rights to asteroids rich in metals and energy sources that could save Earth's civilization, and he had destroyed it all with a bouquet of roses. "Please," Kim Jae said, desperation creeping into his voice. "I didn't know. Humans don't understand plant consciousness the way you do. We meant no harm." But even as he spoke, he could see it was too late. The damage was done. The sound of armored footsteps echoed through the crystal chamber as Velian guards began moving toward Kim Jae. Their armor seemed to be made of living metal that shifted and flowed with each step, and their weapons glowed with the same inner light as the palace walls. Kim Jae had never seen anything so beautiful or so terrifying. Lord Tae Min stepped closer to the throne, his silver markings now pulsing with angry red light. The vine-like growths on his fingers seemed to writhe as he spoke. "Princess, this human has shown us exactly what his species thinks of life itself. They are murderers and destroyers who cannot be trusted." Kim Jae clutched the roses tighter, not knowing what else to do with them. Every movement he made seemed to make the situation worse. The sweet scent of the flowers that had once seemed so pleasant now felt like evidence of his crime. "Your Highness, please," Kim Jae said, looking directly at Princess Nara. "I understand that I've made a terrible mistake, but my people need your help. We're dying on our homeworld. Our resources are running out, and we hoped that together our species could find solutions." Princess Nara's dark purple skin began to shimmer with what looked like tears, though Kim Jae couldn't be sure if aliens cried the same way humans did. "You come to us speaking of death and dying while carrying symbols of murder. How can we help a species that creates life only to destroy it?" The guards were getting closer now. Kim Jae could see that they weren't entirely humanoid. Their arms were longer than human proportions, and their fingers ended in what looked like thorns. Everything about Velian biology seemed connected to plant life in ways that Earth scientists had never imagined. "Remove the human from our sight," Lord Tae Min commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed. "Send him back to his ship with a message that Earth's people are not welcome in Velian space until they learn to respect life." Kim Jae felt panic rising in his chest. This couldn't be how it ended. 3 years of preparation, months of space, travel, and the hopes of billions of people couldn't be destroyed by flowers. "Wait, please, just give me a chance to explain our culture. Humans aren't evil. We just don't understand plant consciousness the way you do." One of the guards reached for Kim Jae's arm, but Princess Nara held up her hand to stop him. For a moment, hope flickered in Kim Jae's heart. Maybe she would listen. Maybe there was still a chance to save the mission. "Human," she said, her voice heavy with sadness. "Your words mean nothing when your actions speak so clearly. You stand before me holding the corpses of murdered innocents and ask for friendship. How would you feel if I presented you with the severed heads of human children as a gift?" The comparison hit Kim Jae like a physical blow. He had never thought of flowers that way, but he could see how it must look to beings who could communicate with plants. The roses in his hands, suddenly, felt like they weighed 1,000 pounds. I would be horrified," he admitted quietly. "Then you understand," Princess Nara said. "Guards escort the human to his ship. Tell his people that Velia will have no contact with Earth until they evolve beyond their murderous ways." As the guards surrounded him, Kim Jae realized he was watching the end of humanity's hope for survival. Kim Jae felt the guards' hands reaching for him when something deep inside his mind snapped into focus. This wasn't just about diplomacy anymore. This was about understanding what he had done wrong and trying to make it right, even if it seemed impossible. Without thinking, He dropped to his knees on the smooth crystal floor of the throne room. The bouquet of roses scattered around him, their petals bright against the alien surface. The guard stopped moving, confused by his sudden action. "If I have caused death," Kim Jae said, his voice carrying across the silent chamber, "then let their death give me life." He picked up the first rose, a deep red one that his grandmother had called eternal love. The thorns pricked his fingers as he brought it to his mouth. Kim Jae had never eaten a flower before, but something told him this was the only way to show the Velians that he understood the weight of what he had done. The first bite was horrible. The petals were bitter and tough, nothing like any food he had ever tasted. The thorns cut the inside of his mouth, and he tasted blood mixing with the flower's strange flavor. But he kept chewing, swallowing the pieces even as they scratched. His throat. The entire throne room had gone completely silent. Even the soft humming of the crystal walls seemed to stop as every Velian watched the human eating the roses. Princess Nara's dark purple skin began to shift to a lighter shade, and her star-bright eyes grew wide with something that might have been surprise. Kim Jae picked up the second rose, this one white like the snow on Mount Han back home. "In my ignorance I took their lives," he said between bites, blood now staining his lips. "The least I can do is honor their sacrifice by making them part of me." The thorns were even sharper on this rose, cutting deeper into his mouth and gums. Tears ran down Kim Jae's face, partly from pain and partly from the overwhelming realization of what flowers meant to these aliens. Every rose in his grandmother's garden, every bouquet at every wedding he had attended, every flower shop on every street corner. They were all graveyards to the Velians. Lord Tae-min stepped forward, his silver markings now pulsing with a color Kim Jae had never seen before. "Human," he said quietly. "What are you doing?" "Taking responsibility," Kim Jae answered, reaching for the third rose. This one was pink, the color of dawn over Seoul's skyline. "If I'm going to represent my species, I need to understand what my actions truly mean. These flowers died because of me. The least I can do is carry them with me." The pink rose was the most difficult yet. Its thorns seemed designed to cause maximum pain, and Kim Jae's mouth was now bleeding freely. But he continued eating, petal by petal, thorn by thorn. Each piece he swallowed felt like he was learning something new about life and death and the connections between all living things. Princess Nara stood up from her throne and walked closer. Her skin was now shifting between purple and silver, colors Kim Jae didn't recognize. "You're hurting yourself," she said, and for the first time her voice carried concern instead of anger. "Yes," Kim Jae said simply, reaching for the fourth rose. "But they hurt too when they died. This is the only way I know to honor that." Princess Nara raised her hand, and the guards immediately stepped back. Her skin had shifted to a brilliant silver color. That seemed to pulse with its own inner light. The change was so dramatic that even the floating nobles leaned forward to get a better look. Kim Jae continued eating the roses, his mouth now badly cut and bleeding. Each bite was agony, but something deep inside told him this was important. He didn't understand why, but he knew he had to finish what he started. "Stop," Princess Nara said softly, but Kim Jae shook his head. "I can't stop," he replied through bloody lips. "Not until I've honored all of them." He picked up another rose, this one yellow like the sun over his childhood home. The thorns cut even deeper, but he kept eating. Lord Tae-min moved closer, his silver markings now glowing with a warm golden light. "Princess," he whispered in the Velian language, but the translator in Kim Jae's ear picked up his words. "He performs the Veltahara, the ancient consuming ritual." Princess Nara's eyes widened with recognition. "That's impossible. Humans couldn't know about the old ways." Kim Jae looked up from the sixth rose, confused. Blood dripped from his chin onto the crystal floor. "What are you talking about?" The princess walked closer, her movements now graceful rather than angry. "Long ago, before my people learned to live in harmony with plant life, we were hunters and gatherers. When we took the life of any living thing, we would consume it completely, letting its essence become part of us. It was our way of showing respect, of ensuring that nothing died in vain." Kim Jae wiped blood from his mouth with the back of his hand. "I don't know about any ritual. I just knew I had to do this." The Veltahara was abandoned thousands of years ago when we developed our ability to communicate directly with plants, Lord Tai-min explained. "We thought it was a primitive practice, something from our barbaric past. But you—" He paused, studying Kim Jae's face. "You discovered it on your own." The other nobles were murmuring now, their skin colors shifting to softer hues. Kim Jae couldn't understand their words, but the tone had changed completely. Where before there had been anger and disgust, now there was something that sounded almost like wonder. Princess Nara knelt down beside Kim Jae, her silver skin now glowing brighter. "My ancestors believed that when you consume what you have killed, you take responsibility for that death. The life becomes part of you, and you carry the obligation to honor it with your own actions." Kim Jae picked up another rose, his hands shaking from pain and exhaustion. "That makes sense," he said simply. "If I'm going to take a life, even accidentally, I should be willing to let it become part of me." "But how could you know this?" Princess Nara asked. "Your species has no connection to plant consciousness. You don't even realize when you're causing harm." Kim Jae thought about his grandmother's garden, about how she would talk to her plants as she watered them. He thought about how his mother would apologize to trees before pruning them, even though she claimed it was just superstition. Maybe humans understood more about life than they realized. "Maybe we know more than we think we do," he said, eating another rose. "Maybe we just forgot how to listen." The princess's skin began to shift again, this time to a warm blue that reminded Kim Jae of Earth's sky on a perfect spring day. Princess Nara's skin had turned completely silver now, a color that made her look like a living statue carved from moonlight. Kim Jae had finished eating 7 of the 12 roses, his mouth a mess of blood and torn petals. Each swallow had become more difficult, but he refused to stop. "Your Highness," Lord Tai-min said. Quietly, his actions show something we did not expect from humans. The princess nodded slowly, her star-bright eyes fixed on Kim Jae as he struggled with the 8th rose. "I have been wrong about your species," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "We studied your people for months before this meeting. We saw your wars, your pollution, your destruction of forests and oceans. We thought you were nothing but destroyers who took life without thought or care." Kim Jae looked up at her, thorns still stuck between his teeth. "We are destroyers," he admitted painfully. "But that doesn't mean we don't feel the weight of what we destroy." The silver glow of Princess Nara's skin pulsed brighter. "That is exactly what I'm beginning to understand. My people evolved beyond the need to take plant life centuries ago. We live in perfect harmony with all growing things. But in gaining that harmony, we lost something important." She gestured to the floating gardens around the throne room, where alien plants grew in impossible formations. "We became so focused on never causing harm that we forgot how to take responsibility when harm was unavoidable. We forgot the weight of sacrifice." Kim Jae reached for the 9th rose, his hands shaking with exhaustion. "Every human farmer knows this weight," he said between bites. "When we harvest grain, we know we're ending a life to sustain our own lives. When we cut down a tree to build a house, we carry the knowledge of what we've taken." Lord Tai-min's silver markings had shifted to the same warm blue as Princess Nara's skin. "Among my people I am considered wise because I remember the old ways, but this human discovered them on his own, in a moment of crisis." The other nobles were listening intently now, their skin colors cycling through shades that Kim Jae was beginning to recognize as deep thought and curiosity. The atmosphere in the throne room had completely changed from anger to something approaching respect. "Your instinct to consume what you had killed," Princess Nara continued, "it shows a spiritual understanding that we thought your people lacked. You didn't know our customs or our beliefs, but your heart knew the right response." Kim Jae swallowed another piece of rose, wincing as the thorns scraped his throat. "Maybe that's what humans do best," he said weakly. "We make mistakes, but then we try to make them right, even when we don't know the proper way to do it." Princess Nara stood up and began pacing, her silver skin now shot through with veins of gold. "You have shown me something profound. My people have achieved perfect harmony with plant life, but we have lost the ability to take responsibility for necessary harm. Your species still carries that burden. Is that good or bad? Kim Jae asked, reaching for the 10th rose. It is both, she replied. It means you cause more harm than necessary, but it also means you understand the true cost of survival. You carry the weight of every life you take, even when you don't realize you're taking it. The realization was changing everything between their two species. Princess Nara walked back to her crystal throne, but instead of sitting down, she placed her hands on its glowing surface. Kim Jae had finished eating 10 of the 12 roses, and his body was beginning to feel strange. The pain in his mouth was fading, replaced by a warm, tingling sensation that spread through his chest and stomach. Lord Tae Min, the princess said, her silver skin now streaked with golden veins. Prepare the biosynthesis chamber. I want to try something that has never been attempted before. Kim Jae looked up from the 11th rose, confusion mixing with exhaustion. What's happening to me? He asked. The tingling sensation was getting stronger, and he could swear he felt something moving inside his stomach. The roses you consumed, Princess Nara explained, stepping closer to him. They still carry their life essence, even in death. With our bioscience, we can awaken that essence and help it grow within you. Lord Tae Min's eyes widened with surprise. Princess, that procedure has only been tested on Velians. We don't know how human biology will react. Then we'll learn together, she replied firmly. Kim Jae has shown us something we had forgotten about the nature of sacrifice and responsibility. The least we can do is help him carry that burden properly. Kim Jae felt his heart racing as the implications hit him. You want to make plants grow inside me? Princess Nara knelt beside him again, her expression gentle but serious. Not just any plants. These roses that died because of ignorance can be reborn through understanding. You will become a living bridge between our species, carrying both the knowledge of what was lost and the hope of what can be renewed. The strange sensations in Kim Jae's body were getting stronger. He could feel something that definitely wasn't human, spreading through his digestive system. Will it hurt? The transformation may be uncomfortable, Lord Tae Min admitted, his silver markings now pulsing with concerned blue light. But if it works, you will become something unprecedented, a human who can truly communicate with plant life. Kim Jae thought about his grandmother's garden back on Earth, about how she always seemed to know exactly what her plants needed. Maybe she had been closer to this connection than anyone realized. What does this mean for our peoples, Princess? Nara's skin began to glow brighter. It means we share knowledge. Your people have developed amazing technologies for survival in harsh conditions. Our people have learned to live in perfect harmony with all life. Together, we might find solutions that neither species could discover alone. You're talking about an alliance, Kim Jae said, swallowing the last pieces of the 11th rose. More than an alliance, the princess replied. I'm talking about evolution. Your species carries the wisdom of sacrifice and responsibility that we lost. Our species has the biological knowledge to help you reduce the harm you cause while still surviving and thriving. Kim Jae reached for the 12th and final rose, his hands steadier now despite everything he had been through. And I become the test subject? Princess Nara smiled for the first time since he had arrived. You become the first of a new kind of being, human consciousness combined with plant wisdom. If this works, you'll return to Earth not just as an ambassador, but as living proof that our species can grow together. As Kim Jae bit into the final rose, he felt the changes beginning inside him. 6 months later, Kim Jae stood on the observation deck of his ship as Earth grew larger in the view screen. But he wasn't the same man who had left this world a year ago. Thin green veins now ran just beneath his skin, visible when the light hit them right. His eyes had flecks of gold that seemed to glow in the dark. Most remarkably, he could feel the life force of every plant within 100 meters. The roses he had eaten on that terrible day in the Velian throne room had taken root inside him with the help of alien bioscience. They grew as part of his circulatory system now, their stems intertwining with his blood vessels, their roots connected to his nervous system. He could feel their contentment, their slow thoughts, their simple joy at being alive. Captain, Lieutenant Park Min called from the communications station. Earth Control is requesting a full briefing on the mission status. Kim Jae smiled, remembering how nervous she had been during their approach to the Valian homeworld. Now, she looked at him with a mixture of wonder and concern. All of his crew had watched his transformation over the past months as the alien technology worked its changes on his body. "Tell them we're coming home with everything we hoped for and more," Kim Jae replied. In the cargo hold of their ship were data crystals containing Velian bioscience that could revolutionize agriculture on Earth. Seeds that could grow in polluted soil, plants that could clean contaminated water, crops that could produce 3 times the nutrition in half the space, but the real treasure wasn't in the cargo hold. It was the knowledge Kim Jae carried in his transformed body, the understanding of how to live with plants instead of just using them. Through the ship's communication system, he could hear Princess Nara's voice from the Velian escort ships that had followed them partway to Earth. "Remember, Kim Jae, you are not just an ambassador now. You are proof that 2 very different forms of life can become one." Kim Jae touched his chest, where he could feel the roses growing beneath his ribs. Their presence was comforting, like having old friends always nearby. "I understand, Princess. The alliance between our worlds will grow from this beginning." As their ship entered Earth's atmosphere, Kim Jae thought about what he would tell the billions of people waiting for news. Humanity wouldn't just survive. The resource crisis, they would learn to thrive in harmony with all life. The Velians had agreed to share their knowledge, and in return humans would teach them about resilience and the strength that comes from understanding sacrifice. The landing in Seoul was unlike anything Kim Jae had ever experienced. Crowds of people filled the spaceport, all hoping to catch a glimpse of the man who had saved their world. But when he stepped off the ship, many gasped at his transformed appearance. The green veins under his skin pulsed gently, and when he breathed, tiny flowers bloomed from his pores before dissolving back into his body. His grandmother was waiting at the front of the crowd, tears streaming down her weathered face. When Kim Jae hugged her, she whispered, "I always knew my roses were special, but I never imagined they would save the world." Kim Jae laughed, feeling the contentment of the plants growing inside him. Princess Nara's final words echoed in his mind as he looked out at the crowd of hopeful faces. Great friendships grow from honest mistakes, and the most beautiful gardens bloom in the soil of forgiveness. The new dawn of human-plant cooperation had begun.